Sometimes we say we know something like the back of our hand, but experiments prove that less than 5% of people can identify the back of their hands from a photograph. The results of a simple experiment conducted for a television program showed that most people are generally not good at reading body language signals either. People's body language reveals that what they say is often very different from what they think or feel. It is a scientific fact that people's gestures give away their true intentions. The verbal component of a face-to-face conversation is less than 35%, and over 65% of communication is done non-verbally. In business encounters, body language accounts for between 60 and 80% of the impact made around a negotiating table, and that people form 60 to 80% of the initial opinion about a new person in less than 4 minutes.
Hello everyone and welcome to Talk Vietnam. I'm Đức Trung and I'll be your host today. Now in this program we're going to learn something that you have probably never ever even considered. We're going to learn about yourself. We're going to learn about people around you, people like your friends, your family, your relatives, your colleagues, or even your boss. Things that happen every day, things that you see every day, but you might not really know what they mean. Now, in our studio today with us is Alan Pease, one of the world's best communication authors, and he is going to teach us about body language. So please give a warm welcome to Alan Pease. Hello, Alan.
Good, how are you?
Thank you very much for being here on our show.
My pleasure. Nice handshake.
Thank you.
Very nice handshake. Very strong, very dominating.
Yeah?
Very controlling.
Well,
but it's your show, so that's okay.
Thank you very much for being here. Please have a seat.
Thank you.
Well, before we get started, would you like to maybe greet the audience?
Well, yeah, I think probably the good place to start would be with what we just did, which is a handshake. So what I'm going to ask you to do as the audience now is to hold your right hand in front like this in handshake position. Everybody copy, okay? Right hand, everybody copy, please. Now, when I say the word now, I want you to turn to somebody beside you and shake hands as if you're meeting for the very first time. Now, you won't have time to think about this, and keep shaking hands till I ask you to stop. Then I'll ask you to freeze the handshake. Do it now. Pick any, shake, 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 stop, freeze. The person whose hand is most on top, Chung, is saying, I will be the boss for the rest of this session. Most people don't know that first, this is mostly a Western and a European greeting. In many parts of Asia, they have other forms of greeting. But its original position, if we can stand, was done like this. That's its original position. And it's at least 4,000 years old. It comes from the Roman era. Because we see this painted on Roman vases. So the leaders would meet and do this. If your arm is stronger, you were said to have the upper hand. Upper hand's an arm wrestling expression.
Right.
So if it goes like this, it means your guys get the first drinking, wine and dancing.
I like that. I think I'm just going to keep it this way.
So what we're doing in a handshake is the same thing, except instead of the fingers being above, the fingers are now below. Because originally this was done in a squatting position.
Oh.
Now we do it standing. But that's why when you meet somebody, if their hand is on top, it doesn't have to be right, just a little on top. You get a feeling here, this guy's coming on a bit heavy.
Right.
If it goes the other way, I feel like I can come on heavy.
Right.
So if you want people to feel relaxed, you keep the palms straight like this, and important, give the same pressure you receive. That makes people feel comfortable and want to like you.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for letting us know a lot more about the handshake. I've never thought that there was so much into it.
Well, you're right. As you said earlier, and you're absolutely right, Chung, that most people don't think about body language. They don't think that it has so much in it. Yet we know from a science standpoint, it makes up 60 to 80% of all the impact of messages sent face-to-face like we are now. So how you come across is more about the way you behave than what you say. And the words can tell lies. The body tells the truth.
Really?
Because it shows your emotions. So you're reading the person's emotions. You then listen to what they say, and if you're good at it, and most women are good, most men are not so good, you can tell whether the person is likely to be lying or telling the truth.
Oh.
One of the things we know looking at brain scans of how the brain works, women have far more connections in the brain for reading body language than men, because women have babies and babies can't speak. So women need to look at babies and read, is it hungry, frightened, tired, injured, in pain? And if women cannot do this, it's detrimental for survival. And women need to look at anybody approaching where she's keeping babies and determine by their body movement, will they be friendly or aggressive? Because if she couldn't do that, she's finished. And that's why you should not lie to women, to their face.
Right.
You call them on the phone.
That's what I'll do next time. Thanks for the advice. Well, during his trip to Vietnam this time, Alan Pease has done a very amazing thing, which is he analyzed the host, or the judges actually, of The Voice Vietnam. And what he did was very amazing, and we're going to show you what actually happened and how he did it in the following clip.
Alan has found that Đàm Vĩnh Hưng often grips both sides of the chair tightly, that he exerts lots of pressure on his grip, which means that his words are carefully formulated by his brain. Alan Pease has also commented that Mr. Đàm tends to switch between both hands while talking, and so he has created a perfect mask to hide his true feelings. By sitting straight and keeping the palms loose and open, Hồng Nhung reveals that her words are honest. They come from the heart and show her true feelings. At the same time, Alan has found that Hồng Nhung does not want to hurt any contestant with her comments. Seeing that Mỹ Linh uses her right hand more than her left one, Alan Pease asserts that the singer employs her left brain more than her right one. The left brain is responsible for logical thinking. That's why Mỹ Ling's comments are done with reasoning and logics rather than emotions. A tense attitude, with hands gripping the chair firmly, as if to hide his true feelings. Composer Quốc Trung seems like he does not really want to give any comments on the performances. The stiff way that he leans on his elbows suggests that his life and the way he walks are rather rigid.
We just saw a clip of you analyzing the judges of The Voice Vietnam. You obviously don't know any Vietnamese, so the results were actually very accurate to what you were saying, their personality. So how did you do it? Can you share with us a little insight?
Sure. In fact, when I did the analysis of the judges, I did it with the sound turned off, so I couldn't hear any sound at all. And as you said, I've never seen any of these judges. I don't know who any of them are, which for me is a good exercise because I have no preconceived ideas about what I'm looking at. The one that really stood out there was Mr. Dam. I mean, that guy could sell brushes to a monk. He really could. To an Eskimo. That guy is a good salesman. And what he uses is Mr. Dow. I like that guy.
Yeah, it's a very accurate, definition of him, per se.
Well, I don't know how much substance he's got in him, but in terms of front and sales, the guy's a winner. It's my future. I'm destined to be with you. Now, if you relate this to love, if you're a woman and some guy says, "You must live with me. I love you. I want to have your baby. Please live with me forever." How do you say no? How do you say no to a man who does this? And that is his secret.
Well, speaking of salesmen, you started out your career as a life insurance salesman, right? And you were very successful at what you were doing. So tell us a little bit of your experience back at that day and how that links to what you're doing now as a motivational speaker and an expert on body language.
Sure. Well, my history started in the 1950s. My father was a life insurance salesman, and after school he would take me on appointments with him at night because when they went door to door, as they did in the 50s, mostly they were women at home, and if you've got a small child with you, they'd always let you come in. So I guess I was a sales prop. So I spent
a good one, right?
Yeah, a good one too. I spent many years of my early life watching my father sitting like this with people, prospects, selling insurance, and he would say, "When I say this and do this, you watch how they react."
Right.
And so I learned very early in my life that you could read people's attitudes by watching their responses. So I started my first sales job at 13, knocking on doors, selling bed linen, pots and pans.
Oh.
And I could tell whether they would let me come in or whether they were interested or not interested. And so I became the king of pots and pans in the Southern Hemisphere as a teenager. And then I joined the life insurance business at 19, and I broke quite a few records in that. And largely because I could tell whether somebody was ready to listen or whether they were not ready to listen. Also, as a teenager, I was great with the girls. I could do the same with the girls. So all my friends used to hang out with me all the time. So they'd say, hey, Alan, that one over there, what do you think? I go, yeah, no, it doesn't like you. Don't waste your time. That one over there, yeah, she's looking good. Yeah. Go for that one. Because in love, it's the same thing, Chung, that you only make an approach to a customer where you've got a good chance of getting a yes. And so you've got to look at open signals that invite you, the green light signals that invite you to say yes. Like if a girl's sitting in a disco and she's like this as you look at her, you don't ask her for a dance, she's going to say no. But if she's sitting like this, I'm overacting it, but this is what happens.
Right.
That's the one you ask.
Is that the same way, you know, in any country around the world?
Basic love signals for attraction with humans are identical anywhere because remember that body signals are linked to your emotions. And the basic emotions for humans, love, hate, fear, joy, surprise, anger, superiority, are the same in every culture, including the Botswanan Bushmen, who I studied extensively, who live like we've lived for 20,000 years in the desert. And they have the same emotions and behave the same way because the body signals are linked to the emotions which are the same as yours, mine, anybody else's. That's why it is such an international language. It's the original human language.
Available for the first time in the United States, the international bestseller, The Definitive Book of Body Language by Alan Pace and his wife Barbara, reveals the secrets of non-verbal communication to give readers confidence and control in any face-to-face encounter, from making a great first impression and acting a job interview to finding the right partner. It is a scientific fact that people's gestures give away their true intentions. The authors examine each component of body language and give readers the basic vocabulary to read attitudes and emotions through behavior, like how palms and handshakes are used to gain control or what the most common gestures of liars are.
In your best-selling book called Body Language, you published in 1981, you give us some basic principles on how to read people through their gestures. Can you give us a few, guidelines on how to do that?
Well, probably the most asked question is, how do you know if people are telling you the truth or they're lying? This is, probably the most asked question in the world. When people don't tell the truth, when they start to tell a manufactured lie, they've thought about it and they're going to come and try and lie to you. Which is a bit different to little white lies. White lies, it's important to be able to successfully tell white lies. You must be able to do this. People start to show a series of gestures and expressions that indicate that they're lying. The important thing is don't take one gesture and say it has a meaning. Take at least three, like words in a sentence. So, for example, ask me if I like your show. Ask me.
Do you like my shirt?
I love your shirt.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, who doesn't believe me? Raise your hand if you don't believe. No one believes me. Why not? Because I did this.
Yeah.
Now, what could this be?
A sign?
Well, maybe I've got an itchy nose. Maybe I'm sweating too much under the lights. Maybe I am lying, but there's not enough information. You need at least three things. So in what we call a cluster, here's how it would look. Sure, I love your shirt. And I always watch your show, Chung. And I love listening to you talk. And your receptionist is a lovely young girl. Now what you've got is a whole series of at least 6 or 7 gestures saying, hey, hang on, this guy is not saying what he really thinks. Lying signals include hand to nose, hand to eye, hand to head in general. And it's probably linked to when you're a child. You remember when you were a kid, if you were making noise, maybe your mother or father did this. You remember that?
Yes.
As an adult, you probably still do it. Like you're talking like we are now, and someone else is talking, and you say, I don't agree with that. But you don't want to say anything, so you...
That's right, yeah.
And that tells you that I'm saying, shut up, Ellen, shut up. So if you know that, you can say to yourself, now, he didn't like what I just said, which in business, of course, you can see how valuable this is. That tells you to stop and maybe go back and uncover what's going on. As a kid, if you don't like what someone's saying, you do this. This is not good to do in an adult conversation.
No.
So, but we probably do, yeah, this, yeah. Now, maybe that's an itchy ear, but you've got to have at least 3. So someone says, how much does this cost me? You say, well, it's only 10 million. Oh, well, that's a good price. Yeah, I like what you're showing me. And I will get back to you for sure. What does this mean, Chung? This means no. This means yes. This means no. Now, if I feel yes, I say, yes, that's a good idea. No, I don't like it. But when people lie, here's how it goes. Yeah, it's a good idea. Darling, I love you. I was not looking at her legs. So you're looking for contradictions between body signals and what you see. And head movement and hand-to-face touching is certainly the most common. I noticed also I threw in a couple of tie signals there as well. The funny thing, when it comes to telling lies, I did a study of lying for one of our recent books, and women lie far more than men. They lie far more than men.
Really?
But most lies for women are to protect a relationship. But rather than saying, I don't like your shirt, they go, oh, it really suits you. Which, that's a lie, right? It's a lie. But rather, or a guy might say, oh, that's horrible, that's no good. So guys will tell the truth, but as a result, they don't make a lot of friends with that.
Yeah, yeah.
White lies.
Alan Peace is an Australian author and motivational speaker. Despite having no education in psychology, neuroscience, or psychiatry, he has managed to establish himself as one of the world's best-known communication authors. His books have been published in 55 languages, and he has sold over 27 million copies worldwide in more than 100 countries. He is known internationally as Mr. Body Language since his definitive book with the same title became multi-million bestseller. His keynote addresses, books, videos, TV shows, and advice on personal image are sought after by everyone, from business executives and prime ministers to TV presenters, royalty, and rock stars. Alan teaches audiences how to become great communicators and to win more business, and he makes them cry with laughter at the same time.
Shake hands with the person sitting behind you. Go!
Let's move on to another question. What are some of the most frequently asked questions that you have received from the audience of your books or from the audience in the conferences you have been to?
Well, yeah, I go to over 100 conferences a year and I get all questions. People often say to me, when you meet people for the first time, Alan, how do they get on with you? Well, if you intentionally take this signal, when you're feeling nervous, it does 2 things. First, you start to feel more confident. And importantly, people who see you do this, Chung, they think, this Chung seems to be a pretty confident guy. They don't know what it is they're seeing. They just think, there's something about him, he seems to be confident. So for job interviews, this is important because, look, with a job interview, you're scared. You're nervous. You've got a couple of minutes to sell yourself and you know it. And so by steepling, when people talk with their hands, they can be good explaining their background, but when the hands come back together, they're likely to do one of these. Everybody copy this. What emotion do you feel when you do this?
Sort of tense.
Tense, reserves, frightened. And anybody who sees this thinks, you're not very confident. So by intentionally changing to this, that's the first one. Now as you talk practicing with 3 nods. 1, 2, 3, stop. And you can practice this. 1, 2, 3, stop. You must stop at 3. The reason being that with head nodding, 3 means keep talking. More than 3 means shut up.
Really?
I'll demonstrate. Tell me how you got started in television, Chung. How did you start? Just talk it.
Well, I started after I graduated from college. I started going to a company in software
1,
development.
2, 3, stop. You feel relaxed with this?
Yeah.
Okay, let's say the same thing again. You say the same answers, but I'll just change the head. How did you get started in television, Chung?
I started after I graduated. Yeah, I can't see.
You can't continue. So it means if you want somebody to shut up, you just have to go more than 3, and they stop. They go.
Now, speaking of this hand sign, we see President Obama of the United States do this quite a lot.
Absolutely.
And I know you have been to a lot of conferences and seminars with very high-profile audience. Share with us some of the experience you've had at those events.
Well, probably one of the most memorable. In 1991, I was invited to go to Russia to the new Russia. They had just, in Perestroika, they opened up Russia in 1989, and so by 1990, it was becoming a free society over there. And nobody really knew what to do about a free society because it had been communist up until that point. And I was invited by the mayor of St. Petersburg and his assistant. The assistant was a guy called Vladimir Putin. And Vladimir said, can you come and teach our top 300 politicians how to appear on television like this, on CNN, where we only see them from here to here, and be acceptable on the eye, because they weren't acceptable. They were doing things like karate chops, saying, we want to help young Russians. We want to help the elderly. That's like saying, darling, I love you. I mean, no one's going to believe it.
Right.
So one of the first things I taught was when on television, where they see you from here to here, as you're talking about what you think should happen, even if you're scared, nervous or tense, intentionally do this position. And if you watch Vladimir Putin today, this is now 22 years later, on television, you will see him sitting there doing steepling, because he's a good student. He's a very good student. You'll see him tilting his head and nodding, 1, 2, 3, stop. 1, 2, 3, stop. Now, he is controlling that whole atmosphere by doing these things. But when he does it now, though, he doesn't intentionally have to think about it, because when you do these things for 30 days or more, they become an integral part of who you are.
Alan Pace and his wife Barbara published Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps in 2001 for their controversial book on the differences between the way men and women think and communicate. The couple spent 3 years traveling around the world, collecting the dramatic findings of new research on the brain, investigating evolutionary biology, analyzing psychologists, studying social changes, and annoying the locals. The result is a sometimes shocking, always illuminating, and frequently hilarious look at where the battle line is drawn between the sexes, why it was drawn, and how to cross it.
So one of your best-selling books written in 1999, Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Maps. You co-authored this book with your wife, Barbara, right?
Yes.
So why can't men listen and why can't women read maps? Give us you know, the answer to this question.
Well, that was the first of a series of 3 books. We sold about 18 million of these books. It's been an enormous phenomenon. And it was the first series of books to analyse the difference between male and female brains using brain scanners to see how they work. If you look at occupations in the world now where it's important to have face-to-face people skills, they are monopolised by women. 94% of the world's relationship counsellors are women. 88% of human resource managers in the world, female. 92% of publicity officers in the world, women. So if it's got to do with dealing with 82% of journalists, female. Now, when you look at occupations that involve the ability to read a map, spatial skill, driving and objects, that is dominated by men. 94% of air traffic controllers in the world are men. 96% of the building industry is male. 99% of all racing car drivers are men, not women. And we discovered convincingly that men and women are different. They're not the same. They think differently about the same things. And so we talked about difference, and this got an enormous reaction from the feminists in America and Europe, because I said women can't read maps. In fact, I said in England, women are such bad drivers in England, they should take their licence away, give them a bus pass, so they're no longer a danger to society. Here's the reason why. To be able to effectively reverse park a car, use a rear vision mirror, or estimate the speed and moving of something and throw a ball at it, is what's called spatial skill. It sits in the right brain of male brain people. Not men, male brain people, because 1 in 5 women is male brained. She has the ability to park very simply. 3 out of 5 women do not have high spatial skills and don't want to drive, don't want to get a licence, and don't want to drive in the traffic. It's because they can't work out the distance of things. They've got other things they're very good at that men can't do, but driving a car is not necessarily one of them for 3 out of 5 women. 1 in 5 women is good because she's male-brained, and 1 in 5 is somewhere in between the two. Now, do men listen? Like you've been accused of not listening, right?
Yes.
You say you don't listen. One of the things we know by looking at male brains is, I want you to imagine that a male brain is like a series of little rooms all over his head. Each room has one skill that works very well in isolation of everything else. Women's brains don't work this way. Women, like with language and speech, most males have in the left side 4 little areas for speaking, between 2 and 4. In other words, it means men are not great talkers. All women know this. Men don't. It's like trying to talk to the floor for some guys. The floor is more likely to answer than some guys. Women have at least 4 front left, 6 front right, 12 across the middle for speaking. So it means that women appear never to stop talking to men, whereas men appear never to talk. Now, these little rooms all over the cord that connects the left to right brain for male brains is around 1/3 less in connections than a female brain, which means the average female brain person can multitask at least 2 to 4 simultaneous unrelated things. She can run an internet program while talking on the telephone and listening to someone here and drinking tea. I can't do that. Can you do that? It's impossible. I can do any one of these. Male brains focus on one thing at a time.
And that's for men?
That's for male brain people.
Oh.
Remember, 1 in 5 women has more of a male brain than a female brain. So what it means, if a guy pulls on the side of the road to read a map, here's a question for the women now. What's the first thing he will do with the radio?
Turn it off?
He turns it off. Here's a guy turns the radio off to read a map. If you put a brain scanner on, you can see he cannot navigate and listen. If he comes to a busy intersection in Hanoi, which is every intersection, if someone's talking to him, he nearly has an accident. It's hard to navigate and listen. And we say to women, men cannot make love and answer questions, so please don't talk. Typical example. Barbara said to me, I was focusing the other day on welding. I had a welding on, and welding is very serious, gentlemen, and welding. And I'm focusing. And Barbara came out and said, would you like a cup of tea? I nearly burnt myself because I can't think about a cup of tea and weld. Where Barbara was cooking recently at home. She's cooking everything and the phone rang. And she answered the phone and kept cooking while talking. Now, if I'm cooking and the phone rings, I'm not answering that phone because if I answer it, everything burns.
Right.
Now, one of the most important things that we found from looking at these brain scans, the early ones, that male brains are set up to speak or listen. They don't do both. And women's brains speak and listen at the same time. Ladies, is this true? Yeah, women can all talk at the same time because they're all listening at the same time. Is this true or not, ladies? And you can do it on several subjects. For men, it gives us brain damage. We either speak or listen. That's why when men talk to other men, they take turns. They don't all go at one time. Like, I have a turn, you have a turn. And while you're listening to me, you go, Then you talk and I go, And then he talks, we go, Women all go into, but if you're a man, important to understand with women, there's no turn. If you wait for your turn, all you get is older. Join in, just start talking. Man talk or woman talk, and they are very different languages, and that's what our books are about, that you're talking a different language. And you look what's happening in the world today, and it's happening in Vietnam. 30 years ago, there weren't many women in the workforce in most cultures. Certainly here there wasn't. Today, women are filling all management positions. In fact, in Europe last year, John, 48% of all middle management positions in the whole of Europe were filled by women. So women are now half the management force. And if you can't sell and convince women to do what you want, you're just not going to get ahead. The reverse is true if you're a woman. If you don't know how to sell and convince men, you're not going to go ahead.
Now, one of the highlights of Alan's trip to Vietnam this time is a seminar in Đại Lai, some 50 kilometers away from Hanoi. And his topic while there is going to be how to read the mind of your business partners. So let's find out more.
What is the body language? What's the connection between body language and one's thinking, and how to apply body language into business activities? These are the questions that Alan Pace gave the answers to in front of 300 attendees at the seminar. For the attendees, most of whom are businessmen, the skills and experiences in body language that Alan Pace shares are useful in businesses.
Mình thấy cái đẳng cấp của ông Alan là tức là ông giúp cho mình dùng những cái kỹ thuật rất là đơn giản, ví dụ như là dùng kỹ thuật tay hoặc là dùng cái biểu hiện của mặt chẳng hạn, là mình nghĩ là mình có thể áp dụng ngay, thậm chí là hôm nay. Mình thấy cái đấy rất là tuyệt vời.
Tôi nghĩ rằng là việc dự những cái buổi như thế này nó rất là bổ ích để mình có một cái nhìn về cái vấn đề đó, xử lý các cái quan hệ giao tiếp, là sử dụng ngôn ngữ cơ thể.
To the majority of Vietnamese businessmen and women, body language is a vague term. However, thanks to Alan's slide shows, examples and case studies, these businessmen now understand the importance of body language and how to effectively use it in human resource management or negotiations. Some attendees believe that with Alan's speech, they have discovered potentials in themselves that they had not known before.
Người phụ nữ doanh nhân như Alan đã từng nói là tư duy của người nữ và người nam đều khác nhau, nhưng người nữ có một cái hay là đọc vị được người đàn ông cần cái gì và người phụ nữ cần cái gì, thì cái điểm đó có thể là thế mạnh của người phụ nữ, biết thế nào để ứng người đàn ông, biết thế nào để ứng người phụ nữ.
With negotiations starting in 2011, the Money Rain project finally had Alan attend the event this year. Even though the presence of Alan in Vietnam is costly, Nguyễn Quốc Trung, the representative of the Money Rain project, believes that Alan's visit could bring positive changes to the Vietnamese business community.
I work a lot with television and with actors.
Tôi làm việc với rất nhiều chương trình TV về
Thì rõ ràng việc một người như Alan Peace về Việt Nam dạy cho các doanh nghiệp Việt Nam về kỹ năng đàm phán, kỹ năng thể hiện mình trước đám đông, hoặc đơn giản là chương trình, thì nó giúp cho các chủ doanh nghiệp khác rút ngắn thời gian rất nhiều so với việc họ học của các chuyên gia khác tại Việt Nam trong vấn đề kinh doanh và trong vấn đề đàm phán, trong vấn đề bán hàng. Tất cả các thứ đó nếu như chúng ta đi đường tắt, học của người giỏi nhất, bao giờ cái thành quả và cái sự tiến bộ chúng ta cũng nhanh nhất. Đấy là tại sao mà trong suốt 4 năm qua chúng tôi chỉ toàn mời những người ở mức độ ở tầm cỡ cao nhất thế giới về Việt Nam.
A few-hour talk by Alan Peace will not bring about an instant change, but with the efforts of the organizers, the event offers a chance for Vietnamese businesses to equip themselves with competitive skills for the increasingly stiff business environment.
This time in Vietnam, one of the main purposes of your trip is the seminar that you're holding in Đại Lai, right?
The purpose of the conference is, and they hold this once a year, is to teach positive business skills to Vietnamese people, because they'll all be Vietnamese nationals. And I'll be talking about how to make a first impression when you're meeting someone for the first time, how in the first 4 minutes of seeing you, where someone makes up to 90% of their attitude about you. So if you don't get the first 4 minutes right, you're going to have difficulty selling any idea, even if it's a good one.
Really? Basically, how can you persuade someone into thinking that, that you're right?
Well, the first thing you need to do to persuade anybody is they've got to feel that you are not threatening, that you're not intimidating, that they can feel relaxed and they can talk with you. And that first 4 minutes is very important. It's like the job interview. It's the same thing. You're doing the same process, trying to sell yourself. So the first thing you'll do is with a handshake, as we discussed before, you keep it straight, keep the palm with the same pressure. Mirror the eye contact you get, which means if you're in China or South America where you get less eye contact, you give less eye contact. You mirror it so people feel comfortable. You'll sit in a mirroring position like this. Avoid any sitting directly in front, because people talk in shorter sentences when you sit like this. When you sit at 45 degrees, people speak longer and feel more comfortable, more relaxed with you. You nod your head in groups of 3 as you're listening. If you're feeling a bit threatened or nervous, maybe put your hands in a steeple position to make yourself feel better. So in that first 4 minutes, the person feels like, oh, okay, I'll give you a fair go, because the truth is all you want is a fair go to tell your story. If you're in sales, you just want someone to give you a fair chance to listen. And so what it does is it makes you feel relaxed. Now, if it's a woman, the first thing you must do is talk at the same time. And when you're listening as a woman, you limit your facial expressions and make grunting noises. We've tested this in the human resource business. And women who do this are thought by men to be very intelligent. But it's not that she's so intelligent, just that she's listening like a man. Now, as a man, you do the opposite. You must participate in the conversation. Where most Vietnamese men, I'm going to show you Vietnamese men. You ready for this? Okay. Now, here is a Vietnamese woman feeling excited. Here's a Vietnamese woman feeling unhappy. Here's a Vietnamese woman feeling happy. Here she's feeling sensual. Now, I'm going to show you. Vietnamese man, ready? Feeling happy. Feeling sad. Feeling sensual. Feeling excited. Ladies, is this true? Now for women, this is scary. Women in business are trying to convince a guy, and he's sitting there like this.
We do smile sometimes.
Yeah, once a month. So what it means, if you want to be convincing with women, you've got to show that you are still alive, that you haven't died sitting in the seat. So as she talks, you do this. Really? Tell me more. Is that right? Very good. Oh, yeah. Ooh. Gentlemen, do not do this with other men. You do this with other men, Chung, they're going to say, this guy's got a problem. So if I'm presenting to a man, I go, one thing at a time, you have your turn. With a woman, really? What happened? Tell me more. Really? Yeah. And women will say, I love this Alan. He's such a great guy. He listens to me. The good thing about all these things, these are skills and strategies that any person can learn. And most of them are kind of hardwired into the brains of most of us, some more than others. Like when I talk about these things with women here, they know what I'm talking about. For men, it's a new concept. But for women, it makes sense, ladies, doesn't it, what I'm saying? Because you know this already. For men, they're thinking, I wonder if this would work. Yes, it does.
Well, I'm definitely going to put this into trial later today.
I believe you, Chung. Women say, I've got an intuitive feeling. It's like most men who are having an affair with a girlfriend, who are married, most men in the world believe they can get away with this, but they can't. Because he comes home and there's small changes in his behaviour that women see.
Right.
And whereas if she's having an affair, most guys don't know.
Right.
They miss it. They don't see the small changes in the face.
Yeah.
And I tried to keep a surprise birthday present party a secret from my wife.
Doesn't really work?
Well, I'd been out to make all the arrangements, and it's a surprise party, right? So no one's allowed to say anything. And I've been making the arrangements over 3 days. And when I came back home, she was in the kitchen. I walked in, she looked at me and she said, what's going on? I hadn't said anything. I thought, I've got to act. I thought, what do you mean? She says, something's going on here. What is it? Because she was seeing small changes in my behaviour that I really couldn't. I write books on this stuff. And now
right, exactly.
She's got me against the ropes.
Yeah.
I said, nothing's going on, nothing. She said, well, that's not true. Something's going on. She says, when you want to tell me, I'm ready to listen. I thought, okay, what do you think she's thinking? Or maybe she's got a girlfriend. That's what she's probably... And I said, no. Next morning, she didn't sleep very well that night. Next morning she said, did you want to talk about it? I said, nothing to talk about. And I'm trying to fake it. I'm trying to act. I'm not doing a good job. And she says, I want to know what's going on. I said, okay, you won't like the answer. She said, oh, tell me. I said, it's a surprise party. She said, oh, did you have to tell me?
Well, I guess even somebody like you with, you know, all your knowledge on body language couldn't really get away with it either.
Well, somebody said to me, that they said, can she lie to you? Sure. They said, when? I don't know. I didn't see it. I'm sure she does. I'm sure she lies to me about little things that I probably don't need to know about.
Can you start learning them since, you know, you're a young child, or do you have to wait until you're old enough to start learning it?
Well, studies with babies, and we carried out some of these shows right from birth. Babies are showing these signals right from birth. Within 6 weeks, the baby smiles. Now, normally the first smile of a baby is through pain. They've got wind built up in the stomach. And so they... But they realise when they do it to you, you go, and you stay longer. So the baby works out very quickly, I can train you with a smile. So every time you come in, the baby goes, and you stick around and give it more time, more food, more love.
Right.
So the babies are training us with body signals. Now, we know that smiling is inborn. You're born with this because babies who are born who are deaf and blind, who can't see, can feel your face, feel it's a smile, and respond. So we know that it's inborn, being able to do these things. So we do it right from the very start. In the first 2 years of human life, there's no language. It is only body signals. And women's brains are programmed to read these. Nobody's quite cracked the code on this one yet. It's a special set of signals, which as a woman you must have, otherwise your baby won't survive if it can't communicate sickness, fear, hunger and pain. Now, the less language you have, the more gestures you use. So by the time a child is, say, 5, they've got a reasonable vocabulary. But because they don't have an adult vocabulary, they tend to use more gestures and expressions, which is why they're easier to read. No, Mum, I didn't do that. You know the baby did that. You know instantly. But an adult says, no, you can certainly count on my support and I will never let you down. Now, that's more subtle and it's harder to see than it was. The way as an adult to train yourself, two things you can do. First, get a home video camera and video yourself doing what you would normally do in a business context or in a social context. And then a week later, have a little training course with your friends where you've all videoed each other and you turn the sound off. This is what I did with the voice. It doesn't matter what language they're speaking. With the sound off, you can work out what the emotional relationship is between people. And people who are hearing impaired, who are deaf, that's how they work.
Yeah.
They can watch TV with no sound and they know exactly what's going on between people.
Okay, so that was our final question. And before we say goodbye, do you want to do any demonstrations with our audience?
Well, yeah, there's probably a couple of good things that we can do. And I'm just thinking of where I've been this week in Vietnam and the people that I've met and some of the things I've observed. The good thing about body language and what we're talking about here in Vietnam is this is a brand new subject here in this country. The rest of the world, it's a very well-established subject. Here it is brand new, and those of you who know how to use this will have a big advantage ahead of the rest of the competition. The other night I was introduced to a guy and his wife. In fact, I'll demonstrate this. Can I ask you to come and join me again, please? Thank you. Here's what happened. This guy, just come and stand over here if you want like this. This guy introduced me to his wife, and the way he introduced me to her told me what his relationship was with her. Now, any women who saw this happen would get a gut feeling, or there's something wrong there, but I saw it on purpose. Now, this guy introduced his wife to me the other night, and the first guy said, "This is my wife." He had the palm up. I thought, well, they're getting on okay. Another guy said, "Yeah, I'd like to introduce my wife here." In other words, she does what I tell her. The third guy said, "Alan, have you met my wife?" Which means, she's an idiot. That's what it means. So that told me exactly what the relationship was between those two people. Now, these are very simple things, just three simple hand positions, Sean, but they dramatically impact on what everybody thinks and feels. So my question is, what is your main position? You can practice having your palms up.
Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Peace, for being here with us again. Now, so you have any final words with the audience?
If I was 30 years of age, Barbara and I talked about this, we would consider coming to relocate in somewhere in Asia because the opportunities we see with these things are enormous. I'm in my 60s now, so I'm at the wrong end for this. I just see opportunities that probably most people don't see because it's all about relationships. If you can teach yourself and your kids to be good at this, they're all going to do so well.
Well, thank you very much, Alan, for all your great advices to the Vietnamese audience. Well, of course, I have to close this out with a handshake, right?
Absolutely.
No, I'm just joking. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And that's all we have for this edition of Talk Vietnam. I hope you have had an enjoyable time with us and with Alan Peace. That's it for this edition. So until next time, goodbye.